At 8 years old, here is what Katherine says about her daughter.
Nancy Lee is 8 years old, and she is my very, very smart, very compassionate, very big-hearted little gal. She's totally mommy's little helper and loves being the big sister.
There are stories in Hollywood that go far beyond the glitz and glamour of red carpets and blockbuster films. Stories that speak to the deepest parts of what it means to be human, to love, to choose, and to build a family not through biology, but through sheer devotion. The story of Katherine Heigl and her daughter Neile is exactly that kind of story. It is a tale that begins in a hospital room in Seoul, South Korea, passes through the quiet halls of an orphanage, and eventually finds its heart on a sprawling ranch in the mountains of Utah. 15 years have passed since a 9-month-old baby girl with a fragile heart and an uncertain future was placed into the arms of one of Hollywood's most recognizable actresses. So what happened next? How has that little girl grown? And what does she look like today? Settle in, because this is one of the most moving stories to ever come out of Tinseltown. The story starts in November 2009, in the bustling city of Seoul, South Korea. A baby girl was born in a hospital and, heartbreakingly, her birth mother left the very next day. South Korean authorities, following legal procedure, searched for the mother for an entire month, hoping to reunite the child with her family. But that reunion never came. The woman was gone, and the baby girl, just days old, had no one to claim her. She was transferred to Namsan-won, an orphanage in South Korea, where she would spend the first 9 months of her life. But life had already handed this tiny child one more challenge before she could even walk. She was born with a congenital heart defect, a condition serious enough to require open-heart surgery in her earliest months. For most babies, this would mark the beginning of a long, difficult road. For this particular little girl, it would turn out to be merely the prologue to an extraordinary life. Among the thousands of children living in orphanages across South Korea at that time, she was just one small face in a sea of uncertainty. No one could have predicted that fate had something remarkable in store for her, that across the ocean, a famous couple was already making plans that would change her life forever. To understand why Katherine Heigl chose adoption, and why she chose South Korea specifically, you have to understand something about the woman herself. Most people know Heigl from her breakout role as Dr. Izzy Stevens on the beloved medical drama Grey's Anatomy, a role that earned her an Emmy Award in 2007 and made her a household name virtually overnight. She followed that success with a string of hit romantic comedies and became one of the most sought-after actresses of her generation. But Katherine Heigl's personal life was shaped by something far more meaningful than Hollywood fame. Growing up, her family had adopted her sister Meg from South Korea 3 years before Katherine herself was even born. Meg's presence in the family meant that adoption was never an abstract concept to Katherine. It was simply part of how families were made. It was normal, it was beautiful, and it was deeply personal. When Katherine met musician Josh Kelly, the two famously crossed paths while filming the music video for his 2005 single Only You, where she played his love interest. They connected instantly. Josh has recalled that they spent the entire day on set together and simply never stopped talking. By 2006, they were engaged, and in December 2007, they married in Park City, Utah. From the very beginning of their relationship, Katherine had been open with Josh about her dream of building a family that mirrored the one she grew up in, one that included adoption. Josh listened, and eventually, he fully embraced that vision as his own. The adoption process, as any adoptive parent will tell you, is not a simple one. It is filled with paperwork, waiting periods, uncertainty, and emotional highs and lows that are difficult to put into words. For Katherine and Josh, the process took approximately 9 months, a timeline that felt both painstakingly slow and, in retrospect, perfectly poetic. Katherine has spoken in interviews about the moment they received the call about a baby girl who had been born the day before Katherine's own November birthday. She was working in Atlanta at the time, filming alongside Ashton Kutcher, and Josh was with her on set. The call came, and they were told about this little girl, her age, her background, and her heart condition. The doctors gave them time to consult with medical professionals and consider their options carefully. But Katherine and Josh had already made up their minds. They wanted her. Josh's father, a heart surgeon, reviewed the baby's medical records and cardiogram, providing the couple with a thorough and honest assessment of her condition and her prognosis. The news was encouraging. The surgery had been successful. Her heart, once repaired, was perfectly healthy. That was all Katherine and Josh needed to hear. They said yes without hesitation. When Neyle, or Neyle Kelly, as she would come to be known, was placed in their arms at just 9 months old, something shifted in both of them in ways that words struggle to fully capture. Katherine has said publicly that the moment a child is put into your arms, they simply become yours, not through paperwork or legality, but through something far more primal and immediate. That is exactly what happened. Bringing a child home is never without its complications, and Katherine and Josh's early days as parents were no exception. One of the hardest things Katherine faced in those first months was the fear that she and Neyle weren't bonding the way she had hoped. Josh, with his playful and energetic personality, seemed to connect with their daughter effortlessly. He would roll around on the floor with her, make her laugh, and engage her with a kind of carefree energy that came naturally to him. Katherine, by contrast, is more of what she describes as a cuddler, quieter, more nurturing in a calm and steady way. Compounding this challenge was the fact that Katherine had to return to work on Grey's Anatomy just 3 days after bringing Neyle home. 3 days. The guilt of leaving her newborn daughter, even in the care of loving family members, was crushing. She worried constantly that she was missing the critical early window of bonding, that Neyle would somehow not know her, not need her, not love her. She has spoken openly about those fears, noting that their social worker reassured them that it is entirely typical for adopted children to respond to new caregivers differently and at their own pace. The turning point, Katherine has said, came gradually and then all at once. One of the most memorable moments happened in 2012 on the set of The View, when Neyle came running to her mother and wrapped her arms around her in the tightest, most spontaneous hug. In that instant, all of Katherine's fears dissolved. The bond was real. It had been growing all along. She just hadn't been able to see it yet. Josh, for his part, expressed his love for his daughter in the way that comes most naturally to a musician. He wrote and recorded a song called Neyle Moon, a tender, intimate tribute to the little girl who had made him a father. It became one of the family's most cherished traditions, a lullaby written from a father's heart. Neyle was just the beginning. In 2012, Katherine and Josh expanded their family once more, this time adopting a baby girl named Adelaide from Louisiana. Katherine has spoken about how this adoption came about somewhat unexpectedly. They had originally planned to adopt internationally again, but found that South Korea had become significantly more difficult to navigate for adoptive parents, and China's waiting list stretched on for years. The serendipitous arrival of Adelaide into their lives felt, by Katherine's account, like it was simply meant to be. Then, 5 years later, came another surprise. In 2017, at the age of 39, Katherine became pregnant naturally and gave birth to a son named Joshua Jr. The birth was not without its scares. The baby was in a breech position for weeks leading up to his due date, and after his C-section delivery, he required immediate oxygen support to help his lungs function properly. But he pulled through, and the Kelly family was now a family of 5. Katherine has spoken candidly about the overwhelming nature of becoming a mother for the 3rd time, the anxiety attacks, the physical toll, and the emotional exhaustion of balancing a high-profile career with 3 young children. And yet, she has also been clear that every challenge was worth it. After the pandemic reshaped their priorities, Katherine and Josh decided that 3 children was exactly right for their family. They were complete. One of the most significant decisions Katherine and Josh made as parents was to leave Los Angeles behind. The couple relocated their family to a ranch in Utah, nestled among mountains and open land that stands in stark contrast to the relentless pace of Hollywood. The decision was deeply intentional. Katherine has said she never felt fully comfortable raising children in Los Angeles, with its particular brand of pressure and performance. Utah offered something different: space, quiet, and the kind of grounded simplicity she wanted her children to grow up with. The Kelly family ranch is, by all accounts, a wonderfully chaotic and joyful place. 8 dogs, 3 cats, chickens, goats, and horses all call it home. Neyle and her siblings spend their days by the river, skipping rocks, caring for the animals, and exploring the kind of rural childhood that most kids in America have never experienced. Katherine has described the peace she feels living there, the way the mountains calm her, and the way the land connects her children to something real and enduring. The family's current home is a stunning property valued at approximately $4 million, surrounded by mountain views, a stone garden, a greenhouse, and warm fireplaces throughout. It is a far cry from an orphanage in Seoul, and yet Nehle wears her history with pride rather than shame. That is, in no small part, a testament to how her parents have raised her. Today, Nehle Kelly is 15 years old. She is no longer the fragile baby who spent her first 9 months in an orphanage, nor the toddler who once seemed to prefer her father's silly antics over her mother's gentle cuddles. She has grown into a confident, intelligent, and deeply compassionate young woman, and the resemblance to her mother, not in looks but in spirit, is unmistakable. Katherine has described her oldest daughter using words like smart, witty, big-hearted, and compassionate. She has called Nehle her best buddy and said, more than once, that this girl is the coolest person she has ever had the privilege of knowing, coming from a woman who has worked alongside some of Hollywood's most celebrated talents. That is saying something. In terms of her public presence, Nehle has been kept deliberately out of the spotlight for most of her life. Katherine has been thoughtful and protective about this, limiting her daughter's exposure to social media and the scrutiny that comes with having a famous mother. Nehle is reportedly one of only 2 children in her entire grade who does not own a personal cell phone, a deliberate choice by her parents to preserve her childhood for as long as possible. She has no personal social media accounts, though she does occasionally appear on her mother's Instagram, where Katherine marks her daughter's birthdays with heartfelt tributes and throwback photos. Her red carpet debut came in 2014, when a 5-year-old Nehle accompanied her mother to the premiere of the animated film The Nut Job. 8 years later, in November 2022, she appeared on a talk show, watching proudly from the audience as her mother spoke. Each public appearance has shown a young woman growing more comfortable in her own skin, more assured, and more her own person. Katherine Heigl's journey into motherhood has been marked by honesty, vulnerability, and an unwillingness to pretend that any of it has been easy. She has spoken publicly about her struggles with bonding, with guilt, with anxiety, and with the impossible balancing act of career and family. But she has also spoken about the immeasurable reward on the other side of those struggles. She and her mother Nancy co-founded the Jason D. Buss Heigl Foundation in 2008, an organization dedicated to animal welfare and combating animal cruelty. Yet another example of the values of compassion and responsibility that Katherine has worked hard to pass on to her children, Nehle included. As a mother of multiracial children, Katherine has also spoken thoughtfully about the responsibility she feels to prepare Nehle and Adelaide for a world that will sometimes see their Korean heritage before it sees anything else. She has acknowledged the limitations of her own upbringing and her commitment to ensuring her daughters have the language, the support, and the space to explore and celebrate their identities fully. Trips to South Korea over the years have been part of that effort, a way of keeping Nehle connected to the culture and the country where her story began. 15 years ago, a baby girl in Seoul had nothing and no one. Today, she has everything: a loving family, a beautiful home, a bright future, and a mother who chose her with her whole heart. That little girl from the orphanage has become someone extraordinary, and something tells us the world has not seen the last of her. What do you think of Katherine Heigl's adoption journey and the incredible young woman Nehle has become? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories like this one.